Hi, Dr. Chris. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah,
My name
nice to
is
see you again.
Taylor. I'm with the Sexual Health Alliance. So today we're interviewing Dr. Chris for his 5 minutes of fame with Shaw.
Only 5 minutes,
So
huh?
it can be a little longer, but typically. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
Oh my gosh, it's such a big question. So I try to weave multiple threads into my work. So there's a clinical component, there's an educational academic component, and then I think there's the most important, which is like the activist component. And one of the things that I'm trying to bring more into the field is this idea that therapists have to be activists and that our clients and patients also have to be activists, and that we have to really work harder on acknowledging and dismantling the larger systems that are creating a lot of the issues people are struggling with. We like to, in psychology, really place and locate struggles in the individual, but a lot of them are actually larger cultural, institutional, and systemic problems that our clients are at the mercy of and victimized by and internalizing. And so therapy has to not only acknowledge that, but also work in some capacity to also undo the things that are creating the problems.
That's so beautiful, Chris. I appreciate that about you. It really is. I mean, how can you be talking with your clients about such intimate things without being an advocate for them in the real world? I think
And
that's
that's what I think is important. And that's one of the things I try to talk to individuals about is kind of bringing that piece in. Yeah.
that's awesome. So a little personal. What are some of your top three bucket list items?
In life in general,
Yeah.
I always have travel more on there, but travel in non-professional capacities. So it's always number one, travel more for fun, travel more for fun. And it happens, but little minute moments, very, very rarely. That's number one. Number two, I really decided that this year I was going to I said this last year as well, and I'm realizing it's like something that takes more time and I'm working hard at getting better about it, but I'm trying to work less and center pleasure, fun, and relationship more. And so I'm proud of some big decisions I've made this year, but I've been turning down a lot of work in service of just like having more fun.
That it's also admirable. We all gotta have fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not always in the best position to be able to do that. In some ways, I have the privileges where I can, but it goes against culture, which is always telling us our worth is tied to productivity, and capitalism, which tells us we always have to be spending money, earning money, and consuming. And to just push back on all that, I think is a really larger, important message on self-care, mental health, and even sexual health, which is more pleasure, fun, and leisure centered in your life in whatever ways we can.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the best things you've ever taught me in your lecture series is
Oh, good.
compassion, not capitalism.
That's right. I love that you remember that. That's
Oh,
so
yeah.
good.
I hang on to it all the time. So one of my favorite questions to ask people is who is your sexual role model?
Yeah, that it's a big one, right? Because the bar is high. I've met a lot of amazing, amazing human beings in my time, personally, sexually, but also professionally. So I've encountered a lot of people that live in very honest ways. And I think that that's a quality that I really value the most in our culture. It's really hard to be truly sexually authentic and liberated. There's so many forces that we have to battle. And I would say one of the most profound role models for me is someone named Connor Habib. He's an iconic porn performer who no longer makes films, but he's made, I think, over 400. And he's also someone who I'm blessed to have become best friends with. And, this is also someone who's never gone to therapy school or psychology school and is probably the most intelligent psychologist I've ever met from his own, secondary learning. But this person lives their life in probably the honest in terms of every aspect, and the sex piece especially, and it's constantly a source of inspiration.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that with
Yeah,
us.
powerful person.
So amazing. Shaw, we provide provocative dialogue and radical collaboration. That's our little slogan.
Right.
So, what does radical collaboration look like to you? And what would you like to see other practitioners incorporate into their practice about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think Shaw's mission statement there really nails all the key perspectives that I think we need to get better about and work on culturally, but also professionally. And I think the radical piece radical and innovation and collaboration, I think, means that number one, we're really challenging norms and values that a lot of us have been socialized with, but as professionals, we've been educated with, and we have to kind of push back on some of that. So I think that's part of the radical piece, is being willing to stand in a sex positive, body positive sphere, which tends to not really be what psychology honors or values. And I think that mixed with the innovative piece is about what like I was saying earlier, is about looking at larger cultural systemic pieces. And radical, its true term, what that word means is to go to the root of things. And so we have to look at, where are these issues beginning, right? And how can we work on just stopping that? And I think the collaborative piece is so important, because it's about community building. And I talk a lot about that in my trainings that I do at Shaw, is that we really have to band together and build community, because this work is really powerful. It's really needed. It's also very draining, but it's also very controversial at times in some communities, clinically and socially. And so we need to really surround ourselves with people that understand us and the work we're trying to do.
Amazing. You're right. It's all about that collaboration within the community. I totally agree with that. So here's your red carpet moment. Go ahead and tell the world what you've been working on, what you want everybody to know.
Someone asked me that on my Instagram, and I was kind of like, oh man, it makes me feel like I always have to be working on something. Luckily I have. So I do my nightly radio show, Loveline. I took it over from Dr. Drew, and that streams live 4 nights a week on the radio.com app. It's in 36 cities live, and it's also podcasted. But I also, and I can't say a lot, I also just wrote a chapter for a book that's coming out in like a month or so that I'm super excited about. And it's re-examining the role masculinity plays in our culture. And I wrote a powerful chapter on sex and masculinity. So that'll be dropping. And then I also was just in a documentary that I think will be coming out maybe in the summer or fall, and shopped around some film festivals. And I get to speak about sex and porn and sex trafficking and sex positivity. So that's super excited. And then I'm going to be filming, I think next week, a 5-part video series with a big company who I can't really speak to yet, but I've worked with them before. It's a really well-known magazine, and I'll be doing a series with them. And then I'm always just working on other media projects, seeing where that goes.
Wow, awesome. You were doing a lot, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I was on my clinical practice, which, I love that. And I'm working on my next 2 books. So we'll see.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Dr. Chris. Catch Dr. Chris in our upcoming cities. We have Albuquerque, March 7th and 8th, and Dallas, April 4th and 5th, for his lecture series on Rebel Love. Thanks, everybody.